if you want to play the potential, the likelihood that we're going to have a sustained rally in gold and silver this year, what you want to have initially are the companies, the juniors that have large-scale resources already identified.
Welcome, fellow investors. Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. StockPulse is on location, and I've got Brien Lundin here, and I want to talk some gold with the guy who writes the gold newsletter. So Brien, I appreciate you stopping by to educate our investors here. And the first question I've got for you here is I want to talk about gold.
Yep.
Looks like the Fed could be easing, maybe not. How do you see that playing out for gold in 19?
Well, it's amazing, the shift in the Fed's stance to go from a planned 3, even 4 rate hikes in 2019 to perhaps 0 rate hikes is just tremendous. And that's only happened over the last month or so, that the Fed has awakened to the volatility in the U.S. equity markets and kind of gotten the message. And now there's the assumption that there's a Powell put in place. Frankly, I had predicted this a year ago, that they weren't going to be able to raise rates at all in 2019. My logic then was that they really couldn't get rates much higher than they were hoping to get on the Fed funds rate because the debt's so large. Sure. With the debt as large as it is now, I mean, people don't realize in 2018 the federal debt in the U.S. increased by $1.2 trillion, a lot larger than most people realize. And the problem is when the debt gets that large, even small increases in the interest rate mean huge increases in the interest rate burden on that debt, just paying the interest on that debt. So that's the problem. The Fed is essentially capped. No matter what message they're getting from the equity markets, it really couldn't raise interest rates much higher. All of this is a very bullish undercurrent for gold and silver and precious metals. So
again, like you said, you predicted this a year ago. So you saw something.
Yeah.
You've seen this 4 years in a row. How's this rally going to play out?
Yeah, the Fed has gotten in a late end-of-year rate hike every December since 2015. And so after that, every year, after each of those rate hikes, gold has posted a very significant rally. So predicting another one this year wasn't a real stroke of genius. It was just, this is probably what's going to happen. It's a clear pattern. In 2016 and 2017, after those December rate hikes, we had really very sustained, long-lasting rallies in gold going into the summer. And at people invested in companies like we're seeing here, these junior companies, made an awful lot of money. 2018, we had the rally again, but it petered out at the end of January, traded flat for a few months, then we had all these trade tensions and the like, the dollar strengthened, and gold just started sliding from April through the end of the year. The question now is, are we going to have a 2016, 2017 kind of a move in gold, or is it going to be more like last year? It remains to be seen, frankly. We've had a nice rally up until about a week and a half ago, until about mid-January. Then gold started to lose a bit of momentum. We're going to know within the next few weeks if we're going to have that momentum regained to the upside. Gold's poised to post a golden cross on the charts where the 50-day moving average rises above the 200-day moving average. That we're within a couple of dollars of that happening. That tends to work, or tends to predict a significant rally in gold about 4 out of every 5 times or so. So that's working for us as well. Again, this shift in Fed sentiment is very bullish for gold. And the dollar doesn't seem to be able to gain any momentum to the upside. I think it's going to weaken, especially if there's a resolution to these trade tensions.
I was just going to ask, what do you make of this? Is Trump winning this battle, or is this something he can't win?
They're going to come to an agreement where both sides can claim a victory. That's the goal, and they have to. Sure. They really have to. They're going to reach a resolution. I don't know what form it's going to take. I don't know when it's going to happen. But I do know it's inevitable. It can't be too far down the road, and it is going to be something where they can both claim victory. When that happens, remember, that's been a real depressant on base metals prices. In the interim, we've had some global economic weakening that's also hurt base metals. But regardless, when the trade issue gets solved, we're going to have, I think, a rebound in base metals prices. So I like copper and zinc, and copper and zinc plays as well right now. And I think it's also going to be bullish for gold and silver because a resolution of the trade problem is going to be bearish for the dollar, and that's going to help the precious metals.
Yeah, how do you, speaking of this room here, a lot of ideas, a lot of opportunities. Warren Buffett would be thriving in a market like this, not that he'd be in this market per se, but the value's there. These things are worth fractions of what they are, and the stories aren't fractured. What do you, I mean, I would think that they need a guy like you more than ever to do their homework for them. How does an average guy get out of this alive?
Well, what I tell people, what I've been telling people in Gold Newsletter is, if you want to play the potential, the likelihood that we're going to have a sustained rally in gold and silver this year, what you want to have initially are the companies, the juniors that have large-scale resources already identified, some kind of an identified resource, maybe further along with economics on them, feasibility or PEAs done on them. But the companies with the big resources are going to be leveraged to a move in gold and silver initially. They're going to move first. They're going to move very rapidly. We've seen in the past that these kinds of companies go into it undervalued and they overshoot a bit, so they can double or even triple in value very quickly. If gold adds $70 to $100 to its price, you're going to see some of these companies that have large resources, these undervalued juniors, double or triple in value very quickly within a few months. Beyond that, you need a sustained trend in the metals lasting 4 or 5 months or so before you're going to see the investor enthusiasm go into the exploration plays. That's kind of the second phase. After the initial move, if it's sustained, you want to start playing around in the exploration plays.
If we pull out from the U.S. a little bit, talk about Brexit for a minute. How do you see this as maybe a movement towards more of a sound money per se? Or how do you see what's going on there? I mean, they voted to get out. They're not letting them out. What does that signal for everybody else?
I think it's very interesting that you have all this Brexit controversy, all this brinksmanship. It looks like there's going to be a good likelihood of a hard separation, a hard exit. And what happens to the pound? I mean, you would think, well, the pound's going to weaken. The pound's been strengthening. Yeah. The market always knows best. And I think the market is looking at this as if Britain breaks free of the bounds of the EU, it's probably going to be a much more dynamic economy. And keep in mind, this isn't a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of an event, because it hasn't happened yet. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. But the trend is toward a breakaway, and perhaps a very sharp and controversial and volatile breakaway from the EU. And the pound is strengthening. So I don't think it's really a huge negative for Britain. I think, if anything, it's a little bit bearish for the dollar. It really depends in terms of the dollar, it depends on what the euro is going to do, because the dollar index is so tightly wound with the euro. About 67% of the dollar index's value is represented by the euro. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's already interesting.
Yeah.
What do you, as far as gold break now, getting back on that, what kind of event would get gold to break out here? I mean, so we got geopolitical risk, you know, Fed policy, the deficits run. I mean, what's going to break this and get this thing going, or we're just going to be sitting here in neutral for a while?
No events. No events. I'm not a big believer in geopolitical crises as a driver for
all
gold
manufactured.
prices. Yeah, they come and go, and there's no logical reason why gold should rise on some short-term geopolitical crisis. It's the longer-term suite of monetary policy and trends that is the real reason to invest in gold. And those trends are frankly bullish for gold, because we have the Fed has been tightening, has been raising interest rates, and now they realize that an economy that has been built upon the shaky foundation of 5,000-year lows in interest rates, unprecedentedly easy monetary policy, if this economy was built on that, if you take that foundation out from under it, you really can't.
No.
So they're either going to manufacture a crisis that's going to create massive amounts of new liquidity to resolve and rescue, or they're just not going to be able to raise rates now or ever. Either way, either outcome is supportive and bullish for gold.
Hey, you can't raise rates and grow deficits.
Yeah. And the debts are so large right now, and they're growing more quickly right now. So as debt grows, the ultimate value of the dollar decreases.
Sound money, hard assets.
That's what I say.
For those who aren't on board with the gold newsletter and maybe a little investment tip to help them navigate these waters, what would you say, Brien Lundin, what's a good investment tip for the average investor in this particular space here?
In this, you mean as far as juniors or stocks?
As far as how do they pick a winner? Give them something to do some homework on.
I like some companies with big resources, identified resources. Some of the ones, well, they offer two things right now. You have sustained rise in gold. You have the optionality of those big resources increasing in value, but you also have some companies out there that have very good projects that are potential takeover targets. You look on that list, you've got to look at the Sabinas, you've got to look at Almaden, Revival Gold is good. In the exploration space, I like Great Bear. I'm talking my book here. I own a significant position in that stock. I was one of the first, if not the first, newsletter to recommend that stock to my readers, and they've had...
And very well done, I must say.
Well, at one point they had a 10-bagger on that already. So how can you recommend it after a move like that? I'm not selling any stock, and I think it's going much higher. It's one of the best exploration. It's definitely the best exploration project that I see in the market today. It may be one of, if not the best, of the past 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder in a decent market if you would have got a 20-bagger out of that.
Well, you may, but it's still early days. I think there's lots of upside left in that play. When you think that they may be onto another, or almost assuredly onto another Red Lake type deposit, they've got lots of upside potential, both in strike length and grade and depth, for what they've already outlined. What they've already outlined looks like it's already worth more than what the market cap is. So what's your risk for further upside? In my view, very low. The upside is, if you're looking at something like the Red Lake Mine Complex, their land position, the structural bodies on their land position are already larger than the Red Lake Mine Complex, considerably larger. So I don't think there's another junior out there that offers that kind of upside potential. I'm not saying that that's what they're going to achieve, but there's nothing else out there that offers that kind of potential that could reach those levels. And if they get anywhere in between, they're going to be worth much more than what they're worth today.
Okay, how do people follow you, Brien? What's the best way?
goldnewsletter.com or neworleansconference.com.
A fantastic conference. I was there. Appreciate the invite.
Good.
A lot of big names, a lot of knowledge there.
Yeah.
And an investor that had to pay to be there. So
Yeah.
the companies know they're serious. So a great event. I recommend everybody be there. StockPulse on location. Brien Lundin, Gold Newsletter. Hey, appreciate the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.